Welcome everyone once more to this week's podcast. I'm Dr. Matthew Croston, and I want to focus today on something I've been calling dollars over deities, India's Persian Gulf strategy to outflank Pakistan. Now, it is beyond question that the Middle East in general, and Persian Gulf in particular, is of vital economic importance to Indian development and financial strategy. In fact, this engagement has always consisted of three main prongs. The first is to leverage Gulf riches to accelerate India's economic growth. The second is to tap into the huge potential for strengthening counter-terror cooperation, Delhi's most important national security preoccupation. And the third is to explore the prospects for deepening defense cooperation with the Gulf states. It's that third aspect that I want to focus on because it's the third aspect that I think is, underemphasized, and it is an intriguing geostrategic national security perspective of Prime Minister Modi that is running parallel alongside these other policies, these other prongs. We need to highlight and enhance our understanding of this Indian strategy to deepen Middle East ties within the Gulf Cooperation Council in particular as an effort to establish leverage and influence indirectly over Pakistan. 2015 to 2017 has seen Prime Minister Modi and his direct team undertake multiple diplomatic visits to countries such as Saudi Arabia, Iran, the UAE, Qatar, Oman, and Bahrain. The immediate future only seems to show that trend becoming more intense, not less. These visits represent much more than just further economic cooperation. Rather, there is a subtle, semi-hidden geostrategic need to ultimately isolate Pakistan's military-industrial complex and undermine the perceived Pakistani support of terrorism as a tool of state policy, especially in terms of the bilateral negotiations and bilateral relations with India. This is arguably just as important to India's future as securing stable supplies of energy and natural resources. There's also a deeper theoretical and philosophical aspect to consider, one that I think is incredibly important for the future. The success or failure of this strategy, dollars over deities, will be a significant new inroad for understanding whether or not financial alliance can impact and influence religious and cultural connections. Now, the idea that that's possible, that financial alliance can impact and influence those connections or maybe even ultimately be more important, has long been documented and accepted in the West when it's between Western powers. But it has never truly been tested outside of the so-called Western world. And I believe this is largely because there's been an untested and unfair academic bias by some Western academics that non-Western societies are less scientific and less rational. Thereby, we are actually institutionalizing for their societies the superiority of religion and culture as a causal influence over economic ones. The Indian strategy, Modi's strategy in the Persian Gulf, is one of the first significant attempts to challenge that orthodoxy, and I applaud it. In essence, it is a challenge to determine if dollars can indeed defeat deities. Can economic allegiance and camaraderie ultimately create new geostrategic pathways that change the regional national security landscape away from Pakistan and to India's favor? Up to now, everyone always assumed India's reaching out to the Gulf Cooperation Council was purely economically motivated, and that was the only strategic advantage India could receive from the GCC. I think Modi has a much bigger plan in mind, a much bigger picture, and I think it's a curveball to come round and influence through a back door Pakistan geostrategically. Analyzing the early evidence to answer this question will go a long way in determining how conflictual India-Pakistan relations will continue to be in the near future, and whether any new surprising aspects could emerge to change them. I, for one, am greatly looking forward to just how much change this dollars over deity strategy could bring in terms of global affairs, foreign policy, and international security throughout South Asia. It's a fascinating world, people. We have to deal with it as it comes to us. And this, I think, will be the ultimate long-term academic perspective we need to start emphasizing, and which at the moment is still being underemphasized, egregiously so.